It's that time again. This is Bryant Johnson, and I'm hanging out with Melissa Rouse. We talk about the problems of staff dependency in the church. This is the Sustainable Ministry Show, episode number 27. We could share a cup of coffee. I got it. Never mind.
All right, you got it? Okay.
Well, hey, everybody. We are back. This is the second episode of season 2 of the Sustainable Ministry Show. Once again, hanging out with Melissa Rouse. And as we get started, Melissa, I'm just curious, why are you wearing the same outfit that you had on last week?
It's like you too, Bryant, are wearing the same exact thing. So my reason is probably the same as your reason. In fact, we recorded last week's episode just 20 minutes ago.
This is like Inception, isn't it?
I know. Have we time traveled? How does that work?
So our reasons are actually different, Melissa. This is just my Wednesday outfit.
Oh!
So
all right.
every Wednesday. I try to keep my attire pretty simple.
That's good, Brian.
So, but when we were talking last week, you had mentioned this thing about staff dependency, in that some churches are so dependent on staff that it's often at the cost of the congregation and the folks who are members of the church. Can you tell me a little bit more about where that stems from?
Yeah, so the idea of staff dependency is actually kind of one of my hot button topics. It's one of my soapbox things that I've got. But the idea to talk about it actually came from the fact that I was having a conversation with one of our partner churches. I was doing a coaching session with someone, and we got to really talking about their idea. Actually, it was a recommendation that ministry architects made, was to consider no longer paying Sunday school teachers. And the church has been doing a great job of trying to back off that and really empower volunteers to take the helm of building relationships with their children and their youth. And so the person I was speaking with was kind of challenging that a little bit, and sees the need and longs to be a sustainable, thriving children's and youth ministry, but just wishes that they didn't need to do that with volunteers. So we had a great conversation, and I kind of had to push on that a little bit. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like, well, it sounds like you want to have your cake and eat it too. You know, it sounds like you don't necessarily want to give up your time. You see that you see the light at the end of the tunnel. You see what you want to have, which is a thriving ministry, one that produces children and youth who have a long-lasting, solid relationship with Jesus beyond high school and college, but don't necessarily want to give up your time to do that. And we had a great conversation, and it came out, it was good, right? But sometimes I wonder if we are abdicating our own authority as ministers, as lay ministers, and we just turn that over to staff and clergy, and we pay them to do ministry for us instead of with us. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that happens a lot where, almost word for word, what you just said is like, we've hired these people to do that. We pay them to do those things. And there are probably some things that staff do that is their key responsibility. But I do think one of those should be equipping people in the life of the church. There's a church that we're doing some work with in Stillwater, Oklahoma, which, let me say, when I was there last time, I found out that there are quite a few earthquakes in Stillwater. They're small. They're due to fracking. So just a little ecological side note. But it was there, and in the middle of the night, woke up, it was about 3:45 in the middle of the night, woke up, heard this rumbling, and then it felt like somebody had bumped my bed 2 or 3 times, and then I rolled over and went back to sleep. Asked about it the next day, and sure enough, there had been 3 earthquakes that night in the
Wow.
Stillwater area there in Oklahoma. So, but anyways, this church, we actually recommended to them on the assessment to put the hiring process on pause, just to press the
Mhm.
pause button, let it let it become less important to them at the moment, um, and help equip their team to really own the ministry in the way that the church wanted it to look like. They've not gotten there yet. One person during that assessment said to us, when our previous staff person was here, they did everything, and now suddenly we have to do everything.
Yeah.
And kind of raising that question about, like, what does that look like? And so that's another church here recent, right? That's trying to figure out, how do we equip people to own the ministry in a new way. Um,
Yeah.
it's interesting though. It's not a new idea.
I feel like people forget. It's not new, right? But I think people forget why they should be paying someone in the first place. So I feel like if they can answer the question and it be a healthy answer, it might sound like this. We've gotten to a point where we need more. We need somebody to take us to the next level. We need someone who has skills and experience in empowering and equipping a group of people to take our ministry to the next level. Unfortunately, it's because many churches will hire in a reactive way rather than that proactive. They'll say, "Oh gosh, we are having a real hard time getting our volunteers to show up. So I guess we're going to have to pay someone to do it." And I feel like that's just the wrong reason we should be hiring someone. If you have to hire volunteers, then I think it's probably a cultural thing, and maybe a systemic thing that needs to be dealt with internally before you go out and hire someone into that system. So, um, yeah, those are just some very opinionated ideas that I have about
Well,
that.
and at some level, if you're paying volunteers, you actually have hired staff, uh,
Exactly.
right? Like, those
They'll
people are
call
on
them
staff.
that. They'll call them hired volunteers. So that's a real thing. That's a real thing. I've heard it, and not just one church, not just two, but a number of them.
So,
Who,
like,
yeah.
what are some of the reasons then to hire staff? Like, why would you move that direction and bring somebody on board?
Yeah. I think it might be a capacity thing. I think it might be an education or an experience thing. So, say for instance, you already have a very empowered lay driven movement. Say for instance, you let's start with a church plant who's very young, etc. And you have an amazing church plant with an awesome small group ministry. And you have 2 or 3 small groups that have bubbled up and are just becoming really, really wildly popular. The church may decide that they need to hire someone to manage and coordinate all of the small groups that are popping up within the church because they're growing at an exponential rate. That might be a reason. It might be a reason because they're looking to, again, raise the bar or be better. For instance, many volunteers haven't gone and gotten an MDiv or their degree in ministry. And so they decide to hire a pastor or somebody who can help them be better, someone who can pour into them and invest into them so that they themselves can get to a new level. I just feel like staff should be equipped and empowered to help raise the bar, not hurdle over the bar that's already been there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah. So that's what about you? Have you maybe have other examples of ways and reasons why a church might decide to hire someone?
Yeah, I think so. You mentioned kind of numbers and growth. That's certainly a
Yeah.
reason. I think to be able to, and it's what I mentioned earlier, to be able to equip people to be better in ministry, which again is about capacity, but it's also about, like, your reach as a church. So if you equip your volunteer team to be better in leading a small group, and I hate to say to be better or to be excellent, because I don't know what that really looks like, honestly.
I hear you.
But to do it in a way that's effective.
Yeah.
So like if you do that and your leader is effective in facilitating this small group of people, the people in that group are going to be more inclined to come back. They're
Yeah.
going to be more inclined, hopefully, right, to be vulnerable with those that are around them and to really like share their life with each other. And that creates this new thing that's happening in the life of your church. So that could be a reason to hire somebody to
Yeah.
help equip people just to be effective in the things that they're doing. A ministry might need management on a day-to-day basis that is not about doing the ministry, but about coordinating,
Yeah.
planning for the next steps, doing some of that kind of work, administrative work that needs to happen. That could also be another reason to hire somebody as well to
Yeah.
help manage the day-to-day stuff that's moving forward.
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah. I was thinking about pastoral care. Many churches who have a lot of clergy on their staff will often hire for pastoral care reasons. But I have to be honest with you, even then, I'm a little skeptical that that's the best route to go. You had just said the coordinating effort. I feel like, goodness, if we're going to be the church, capital C, and we are going to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ in this world today, then we shouldn't be paying anybody to minister to us. We shouldn't necessarily be paying someone to care for us pastorally. I feel like we should be hiring someone who might be able to give us the tools we need to care for others and maybe coordinate that effort. I feel like, again, the issue with staff dependency is not necessarily our fault or clergy's fault, or it's kind of we've come to this place together, and we've gotten used to being fed by the staff, that the staff is just helping us and serving us, et cetera, et cetera. But again, in that we've abdicated what we need to be doing in our own authority to minister to others. So even pastoral care folks and ordained clergy, I believe, should be coming alongside us to minister to others. Does that make sense? So I know that might be a little unpopular, but I do feel like we're at a paradigm shift right now in the world today in church. And I feel like all the statistics say is that we're in decline. And I feel like we might be in decline because we've become a bit apathetic in living out that the God mission that we have to be there for one another. So
yeah, it's that thing of like where if I'm sick in the hospital and the pastor doesn't come see me, then the church hasn't visited.
right?
Like, which is absolutely wrong. If people from the church have come and visited, the church is there, it's present. I think sometimes, and I guess I have to clarify this, but sometimes we hire somebody for their expertise as well. But we get it wrong. I think the church gets it wrong sometimes, where we hire somebody who's an expert with children, as opposed to an expert like in children's ministry that can help equip other people for ministry and manage the ministry. Those are two different things. And same thing with youth ministry as well. Like sometimes we'll just hire somebody, and Mark, of course, talks about sustainable youth ministry, but sometimes we'll hire somebody who's just a great guitar player and other people will sing with them. Well, that's lovely.
Yeah.
But is that going to help us to have the youth ministry that we really hope for, and that maybe we feel God nudging us toward as a church? Because those are two different things. Have you read The Equipping Church? Have you read that?
Love by Sue Mallory.
Yeah.
Love.
Yeah. I would recommend that to anybody in our audience who's just like, okay, so what does staffing look like? How do we do this better? Or maybe it's just frustrated with volunteers even, because there's some real good, like, ideas and thoughts and nuggets of information that go back to scripture and biblical times. So again, these are not like new ideas. We just have been stuck in this place where we think if we hire this person to do it, then they should just do it.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. It's actually a book that it's one of my favorites. And Sue Mallory was just a parishioner, if you will. And she happened to get a very empowering pastor who just kind of dumped this in her lap and said, I want you to do this. I want you to kind of find people who have gifts and talents in certain areas and help match them up with those areas so that everybody can be serving together and be affirmed and encouraged in their work together. And honestly, I feel like in the beginning in the book, she kind of talks about how she was resistant to that idea. And kind of it's like, but wait a second, aren't you the pastor? And so it was just kind of, she re-educated herself about what ministry truly is and who does ministry and for what reasons and why. And I fell in love with the book. I think she goes on journeys with churches all over the country trying to help them establish an equipping culture, if you will. But I feel like she doesn't own that conversation. I think she's just a voice in it.
Yeah.
And I feel like we all need to get on board with reclaiming our position in the kingdom. And we are laity, and that is, we are an equal and important order of ministry. And so we need to own that, which means we need to do the work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard work.
It is.
I don't think there's anything easy about it. And it's also not a silver bullet. It's not a quick fix. It's not something that you're going to, you're going to build a long-term staffing plan and a response to the ministry that's happening within your church. And you're going to equip staff in this way, and suddenly it's going to be great. It's going to take years, really, to move from a staff-dependent model to a model that is helping other people just serve in ministry and do that well.
It might hurt a little. There might be sacrifices that we need to make along the way in order to ensure that we're successful. And this is pertinent to any ministry, but I'm really thinking about children's and youth ministry specifically, because I'm dwelling back on that conversation, that coaching call that I had earlier. Moms and dads might need to give up going to Sunday school. Not just moms and dads, but any adult might need to give up going to Sunday school themselves occasionally to serve and volunteer and minister to our children and our youth. They want to have their cake and eat it too, right? But sometimes they can't do both. And one is certainly important. Raising up and equipping our children and our youth is vital to living a Christian life, I believe, and living into our baptismal kind of covenants. So it's not easy. I think we're going to have some sacrifices along the way, and it might hurt a little bit, and it might feel weird because we might be doing different things than we used to do it or what we're used to. But I think it's absolutely necessary that we kind of change our own stuff so that we can move forward better together.
Yeah. Got to get out of those comfort zones.
For sure.
Definitely. All right, Melissa, this has really been wonderful. If somebody who's listening is thinking like, we are in that place, our church is so staff dependent, what do we do? Where would you tell them to begin?
Well, pray. Honestly, I know that might sound so ridiculously cliche, but I feel like we need to prepare ourselves better. We need to open ourselves up to the Spirit. And I think we need to pray about it. We need to say, okay, we need to first recognize that, hey, we have a problem here. Our challenge is that we've become so staff dependent. We have forgotten what it means to be the hands and the feet of Christ. And so pray to God that the Spirit can be in you and that can work through you to empower and encourage and motivate you to do something different. I think it starts there, is by naming it and praying about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll probably get into some of the other conversations later on as we go on to this, because certainly there are some, once you have prayed, right? Like, absolutely. Then there's some other intentional stuff that can be done. And then,
and there has to be a relationship with pastor and laity. They have to go, and you can't do it. You can't do it unilaterally. This has got to be kind of a group collaborative effort between the clergy and the lay folks of the church.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, folks, this has been our second episode of our second season of the Sustainable Ministry Show. We love having time to do this. Ministry is part of our call in our life, and love the opportunity to talk about it, to speak into it. But certainly, it doesn't stop there for us. So if you've got questions, you want to be involved in the conversation, you just have something you want to bounce around, please reach out to us. You can reach me at bryant@ministryarchitects.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bryant Johnson, on Instagram, Twitter, all that sort of stuff. So find me in those places. Melissa, how can people follow up with you?
Yeah, you can reach out to me via email at melissa@ministryarchitects.com. I too am on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and yay.
And you're going to be at the conference, Simply Youth Ministry Conference, coming up, so they can take some notes, and then as soon as one of your classes is over, just be like, answer these.
Yeah, man, I would love, if you're going to be at Simply Youth Ministry Conference for real, if you're going to be there and you'd like to meet, I would love to meet you and maybe share a cup of coffee. Well, you can have your own cup of coffee and I'll have my own cup of coffee, but we can sit at the same table and talk. I would love to meet you. So feel free to reach out via email and set that up for sure.
It's so great. It's so great. Well, thanks for taking some time with us today. Thanks for those of you that are listening. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe on YouTube or on iTunes. We're in all the other podcasting places. So like Stitcher Radio, you can find us there. There's another one, .fm, podcast.fm or something like that. I should know these. But we're in all of them, which is just fantastic. So feel free to subscribe, share it with your friends, pass it along to others that you know in your networks. Thanks so much, Melissa. Talk soon.
Bye.
Fantastic.
Is that all right?